Before he said anything to them, he called for a child. And he said, "Child, come here to me." And when he said it to the child recognized the authority in the voice. And the child came to where he was and did what Jesus said. And when I looked at that, you know, Jesus wanted them to understand that heaven is a place where grown folk can't go. They wanted to know how to get there, but he wanted them to know that the condition that you're in right now, you can't go. And even though you're walking with me, but there's some folk with me that think that you're grown. And he wanted them to understand that except you be as a child, you can't get in. And y'all know how it is, you know, it said that he called the child to come to where he was. And then when the child got there, he talked to the child and told the child to sit right here. And the child obeyed his voice. The child exemplified what God wants us to exemplify. He wants us to listen to what he's saying, and he wants us to do what he's telling us. So he said, instead of me telling you, let me show you how to get to heaven. And he said, let me give you an example of somebody that I know I can call on, and they're going to do exactly what I tell them to do. Y'all know how it is when we call our children. We expect for them to hear our voice, because guess what? We got authority in our voice, and we expect for them to do what we tell them to do because we have real respect in them. Let me back up for a minute. He was letting them know the condition that you're in right now. You're not ready. You worried about who's going to be able to get to heaven and who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. And God said, now, you need not have your mind on who's going to be the greatest. You need to have your mind on getting there. See, if we can get there, it don't make no difference who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom. Because he is the greatest in the kingdom. All he wants us to be concerned about is to get to where he is. I thank God this morning, I know that Jesus told them, he said to them over in the book of John that let not your heart be troubled. He said, if you believe in God, then believe also in me. In other words, the words that I'm getting ready to tell you, if I said it, then that settles it. He said, don't be worried when I leave you alone, because guess what? I'm really not going to leave you by yourself. I'm going to send a comforter to you, but while I'm gone to prepare a place for you, that where I am, ye may be also. I want you to do what I said. When I leave here, y'all know how it is when you leave home and you tell your children to do something while you're gone. When you get back, you expect for what you told them to do to be done when you get there. The same thing with God. When he left here, he expected for us to be doing what he told us to do when we get there. Let you get home and those dishes ain't washed and they stacked up in the sink. There's going to be a problem with somebody in the house. But if you come home and you find the floor swept and the bed's made up and the dishes clean, you can look at your child and tell them that they done a well job. But that's what I'm talking about my daddy this morning, because when he come back, the Bible says he's going to tell us those that have done a good job, well done, my good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a few things, and come on up and let me make you ruler over many. But he said, now there's going to be some that when I come, that hadn't did the work that I told them to do. He said, now you going to be in trouble, because when I give you your portion, you ain't going to be happy with it. In other words, when I tell you where you're going, you ain't going to really want to go, but you hadn't did nothing to be able to come on and go with me. I kept looking at that. It said, and without question, the child did what Jesus told him to do, and he sat down. Jesus said to them in verse 3, except ye be converted. In other words, except ye be changed. In other words, that something in you have got to take place. In order for you to be able to get into heaven, you got to change your way of thinking. In other words, you got to change the way that you think about things. You got to change the way that you're doing things in your life. And he will let them know, except you humble yourself. That's why he brought the child up. He said, you got to humble yourself just like this little child. Heaven is a place that grown folk cannot go. Y'all remember there's other scriptures that even tells us that if we ain't right, then we can't get in. Y'all remember in the book of John chapter 3 where Nicodemus was talking to Jesus one day, and Jesus was telling Nicodemus, he said, Nicodemus, except ye be born again, you cannot enter into the kingdom of heaven. And Nicodemus looked at Jesus and he thought that Jesus was talking about a physical transformation, but Jesus was actually talking about a spiritual transformation. He said, now Lord, how can I enter my mother's womb the second time and be born? And Jesus told him, Nicodemus, if you don't understand earthly things, how you going to ever be able to understand heavenly things? He said, if you don't get it right here on the earth, then you can forget about living here with me going to heaven. And that's all I really came to tell us today, that we got to have a mindset of a child when we deal with the Lord. Well, what is the mindset of a child? A child do what they've been told to do. A child obey those who are in authority over them. And Jesus said, until we start doing what he tells us to do and obeying what he tells us to obey, we ain't going nowhere, y'all. He said, you can forget about riding on the head of the train to heaven. You can forget about stepping on that cloud nine. Y'all know how we love to quote the scriptures over in Thessalonians that the dead in Christ will rise, and then we that are still here will meet them in the air. Where he said, now the dead in Christ shall rise. But if you ain't been doing what God tells you to do, you can forget about meeting anybody in the air. I thank God this morning. I kept on looking at this. Nicodemus said, Lord, I really don't understand. And y'all remember how it was when we were growing up, you know, we couldn't wait to get grown. Because we felt like if we would get grown, then could nobody tell us where to go or what to do. So you know, as a child, we would say all the time, and Mom and Daddy would tell us something to do that we really didn't want to do. You know, I can't wait to get up out of here. I can't wait. Y'all know you said it too. I can't wait to get grown, so won't nobody be able to tell me what I gotta do. Won't nobody be able to tell me what I gotta say. Won't nobody be able to tell me how I need to be acting. Won't nobody be able to tell me what I need to be thinking. So I can't wait to get grown enough so I can do what I want to do. But don't you know now, the most of all, you know, children, they couldn't really wait to get grown. Because see, now they knew that if they would get grown, now couldn't nobody tell them where they could go. If they could get grown enough, then they could go where other grown folk were going. Y'all need to stay with me this morning, because if you look at places that grown folk would go, you know, they could do stuff that grown folk were doing. They could go places that grown folk were going, and they could act like, you know, they wanted to act. But I came to tell you this morning, if we're not in sync with the Word of God, it don't make no difference how old you get or how grown we think we get. If we ain't right with God, He's the one that has the authority to tell us whether we're going anywhere with Him or not. You know, I kept on looking at that, you know, in order for me to be grown, you know, I could go to places that I wanted to go. I could go where I seen other grown folk going. And I could do some grown folk stuff. You know, I can act like children not act in grown folk places. You know, I can say stuff that children shouldn't be saying because I was in a grown folk environment. I could drink stuff that children shouldn't be drinking because I was in a grown folk environment. And don't you know that any time that you want to go to where grown folk is, then evidently it shows us that whatever grown folk are, and whatever what grown folk are doing, something got to be wrong with that picture. But let me back up this morning, because somebody already done missed it. So many times when we get ready to go, and we say, well, y'all too little, you're not old enough, you can't go where we get ready to go. Well, Mom and Daddy, how come I